We're live,
We are
Josh.
live.
Outspoken engineer with Josh. HVAC homeowner's guide. Josh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. What's the weather like in the States, or whereabouts you are in Virginia?
It's cold. It's colder than usual.
Okay.
Bitter cold.
How cold's cold?
We
How cold's cold?
we have some temperatures coming up here, getting close to Christmas. We're gonna have some nights that are down in the teens Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius, but it's gonna be cold.
It sounds cold. So we've just had a hot, really cold week here in the UK. They've called it the Beast from the East, where we've dropped to sort of minus 10 centigrade, which is probably something
Wow.
like minus. Yeah, it's not abnormal for the UK, but it's warmed up this week.
Yeah, it's like 11 degrees today.
It's
so
11 degrees today,
It
but
feels warm.
But what's happened is, Josh, is that poor maintenance that hasn't been done, and also the cost of energy. People are a bit panicking this week.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
it's really it's real taken off for us with talking about defrost and that side of things.
We have a joke every holiday that whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, there's always those folks that just kind of, you haven't heard from them in a couple of years, and then they slip right in there, and they need it done right before the holiday every year.
Okay. What do they come at you with?
Hey, I don't have heat, or I don't, AC if it's, but 4th of July for us, any of our holidays, they'll always, it seems like that last week right before the holiday, they, hey, we need this. I've got family coming in. We need this done by the holiday. And, I don't know how you guys are, but, we try to prioritize things. If you get swamped with work, you gotta prioritize. You gotta take care of the folks that have been taking care of you. So,
for sure. Josh, I know it's not big in the States, but in the UK, there's a huge, you Google air source heat pumps, or YouTube them, and you'll see the amount of channels popping up and people talking about this sort of product. Air source heat pumps they're not active in America, are they? So to have a system, it looks like an air conditioning condenser with a heat exchanger, and then you have a tank inside. You don't have them in the States, do you?
we have what we call air source heat pumps, but what you're describing, I'm not sure is the same thing. We have, your outdoor unit. And then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you sort of saying geothermal, or what are you elaborating on? Maybe I think I probably should let you spoke there. So when we talk air source heat pumps to you, what does that mean to you?
So we have heat pump systems, especially here in Virginia. We're in the middle part of the country, and so we have a lot of heat pumps. So we'll have an outdoor unit. We call it, an air source, so it'll be an outdoor condensing unit. And there's different types, obviously, but we still have what we call the unitary style. So we don't have as many of the side discharge where the fan blows out the front.
Okay.
And especially
your air source,
when we're talking about whole house solutions.
Is that heating for your aircon, as in your central plant, or how is your hot water generated?
Oh, we have water heaters for that, for the most part.
Electric.
Electric and gas. So we have two separate. It's a separate entity in itself. So there are systems that they have that they'll get their heat off of. They'll have hydronic heating, but most of our customers, they're going to have a separate water heater, and it's separate from their air conditioning and heating.
And is there a driver in the States to convert your gas water heater to an electric water heater to sort of become more eco, or is that something which people are doing?
Yeah, especially the heat pump water heaters that have come out in the last few years. That's new to us as far as, I don't remember heat pump water heaters being a thing when I started in this industry, but now they're more of a thing, and we have certain states that are more aggressive than others at catching up with you guys. So we
Okay.
do have states that are starting to ban, fossil fuels of all kinds of appliances. They're doing away with
Okay.
furnaces. They're doing away with water heaters.
Okay. Well, we recently did a video which we're going to follow up with to make it even more clearer, and that's where, you know how much air conditioning and HVAC units cost, but these units, these air source heat pumps, they're super efficient. You sort of get efficiency ratings of sort of 400 to 600%. But we've sort of done the math, and the cost to install and the cost to replace, you're so much better off having an electrical water heater because of the cost is a fifth of the price. And a lot of people are having these fitted in their properties, and I think they're going to be in for a bit of a shock when they come to replace them. I don't know if you have, you might have a bit of more experience on this sort of topic, because in the States, aircon has been, it's been prolific in most properties, right? So would it put a homeowner off buying a property if the air conditioning unit is a certain type or a certain brand or a certain age? Or is that never really a problem? People just expect the costs to be quite high.
I think that people expect for it to be an investment. For most of our customers, their heating and air system is going to be the third largest investment that they make in their lifetime. Behind buying a home, buying a car. They've gotten to where their heating and air systems are quite an investment. I think that recently, in the last 5 years, especially in the last 2 years, it's become more of an investment more than ever. The way prices have jumped with inflation, but also with the new ratings, the new efficiency ratings that we now have that are kicking in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
But it's compounding. We're having new refrigerants being introduced to our country. They've banned 410A, so we're behind you guys. We get to watch you show us what the future looks like.
They banned 410A, or they're phasing it out?
They're phasing it out, but they're speeding things up. So I just did a video. It hasn't gone live yet, but it's going to be going live in the next week or two. But they have now sped it up nationally, that they're saying by this date, no more 410A refrigerant systems.
What is that date, Josh?
If I remember correctly, for residential, it's going to be January 1st, 2025, I think. So just 2 years from now.
The ban a new installation, right?
So for us, they've had the phase. Yeah, it's gonna cover all new equipment, and for us, up to this point, we have not had a specific date. So they've been announcing all these things. They had the AIM Act get passed a couple years ago, and of course, there was I might not pronounce this correctly, but the Kigali Agreement, that was a worldwide agreement from all these different nations. And so we've had all these things happening. We've known all these things are coming, but this is the first time that here in the U.S. we have an actual date where someone has said, this is it. And it has not been passed yet, but it will be. I mean, I'm fairly certain of that. Usually when the EPA comes out with something in our country, they don't really have to answer to anybody. They just kind of do what they want. So it'll get passed, I'm sure.
And 410A, are you replacing it with R32?
Great question. We don't know. Some yes, some no. So it's a big topic right now because some manufacturers are fighting over this right now. So we do know, from what I can tell, and again, this may not be accurate if somebody watches this in the future, but right now Daikin has said that they're going to be R32. There's no compromise. From what I can tell, they're not compromising. And then we have companies like Kier.
Yeah, sorry, Josh. I was just going to sort of butt in and say R32, Daikin have got a large part with R32, so they actually created the refrigerant a few years ago and they sold the patent. But it's big in Australia. Daikin is all R32. UK and Europe is all R32. So the Daikin trend will probably follow to the States. What other
Yeah.
brands are you were just about to say about another brand with another fridge type?
So I don't know what I'm allowed to share because I have had some kind of behind closed door conversations with things that were
Yeah.
said that I might not have, that I probably wasn't supposed to hear. Maybe I don't know, but I can say that uh, a large amount of other brands, brands like Carrier especially, are going more towards refrigerant called 454B, and it has a lower
Yeah, I know the one.
GWP, and it's a a blend, I believe, and
Yeah.
they that's where they're going with it.
So I think I don't know the official politics, and I might be wrong in this, but Honeywell, I think, maybe part of the same group as Carrier. And I think Honeywell created R454B, and I think that might be their reason behind it. They're using their own gas. The only time we've
Yep.
come across R45B is a lot of chillers. Chillers now are either 1234ZE, R454B, or R32. Touching on R32, really, really, really important question for you here is it flammable in the United States?
So they are classifying it as a what they call mildly flammable refrigerant. They're
Yeah.
saying that certain conditions have to be met, and they're classifying it as what they call an A2L refrigerant.
That's it. Same as here. Okay. And what does that mean for yourselves? Does that mean you have to have a spark-free vacuum pump? Does it mean you have to have a fire label on the condenser and the indoor unit? What does that mean for you guys?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm sure every
Okay.
state will be
So in the
different.
Okay. Have you
But
got
yeah,
any
I'd love to hear
flammable
what you
refrigerants
guys
at the
do.
moment? Have you got R600A where you are, Josh, which is the propane that are in fridges? Do you have R600A in the States?
We have them in some recreational vehicles, but I've never seen it used in residential other than an actual furnace, something that's burning the fuel. But as far as the
Understood.
refrigerators and refrigeration goes, I've only seen it in recreational vehicles.
Okay. So if I was to say, Josh, I've got a crystal ball here. When you have R32 in the States, this is what's going to happen, and this is what happened in the UK. The cost of R410A is going to go through the roof for you. So in the UK, it was about £110. So let's call it $150 for 10 kilos. When they initially banned it, the cost went up from let's call it $150 to $800 within a week. And
Wow.
people were basically selling it on eBay. It went berserk. It's actually now come back down to the original price of $150, but they exploited it so much with all the talk that it went berserk, where people were selling it on eBay. People were reclaiming old VRVs or old furnaces and selling the gas on eBay and making an absolute fortune. Vac pumps, your vacuum pumps have to be A2L approved, which they're just basically sparkless. Every single outdoor and indoor unit has to have a sticker. And I think there's a few other methods with handling it because of it being an A2L. The concerning thing is R32 refrigerant isn't flammable in Japan. It's only flammable in Europe. And this has always been the big thing. You would speak to a manufacturer about this and they would just scratch their heads and be like, yeah, I can't tell you this, but I don't think it's flammable. And I'm like, let me get a lighter out and try it. It's very odd. It's very odd, but it'll be good for you guys in the States because it'll keep you all busy. You'll all need to be retrained and people will have more new systems installed. So there's a great big positive to that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of folks that in our industry that it took them a long time to even learn how to use 410A refrigerant. We used R22 when I started out, and it was a very forgiving refrigerant. The guy that I learned under would just kind of dial in his needles on his gauges and just kind of grab the line, and that it was what he called beer can cold and move on. But we learned real quick with 410, you can't do that. You've got to take proper measurements and do your subcool, superheat, all those things that, you know, a lot of these guys
Yeah.
just don't want to get on board with. So it'll be interesting. I love change. I love new technologies as long as it's advantageous to the consumer, as long as it's good for the customer or the planet,
Yeah.
right? But
Of course.
I'm okay with change, as you know. I'm not okay with change just to make change and to make things more expensive to customers. But I am okay with it phasing out these guys that should not be in our trade to start with. These handymen that just kind of do it for beer money. You know, they don't know what they're
Gotcha.
doing. They buy these what we call DIY units, and they, you know, I'm okay
Yeah.
with them being phased out. So
One of the benefits, sorry, I didn't mention with R32 is the refrigerant and the volume of the refrigerant. So on a you know, like a split, you know, like a, I don't know, you'd call it a 9-ton split unit on a wall mount, you know, a little small unit for a bedroom. You may have like 1.2 kilos of R410A. With R32, you'd have 0.75. So you get much more efficiency out of the refrigerant per volume. So you're actually having lower gas charges. That's probably the best thing that we've come across with R32.
that's
But
great.
yeah, you know, that's what you might have in the States. In the UK, there's been talk of banning R32 in the next 12 to 24 months, and bringing and using CO2 or something even different. You know, so the future's a bit, you know, the future's a bit, well, call it bright or call it, you know, something's going to change massively for us, and R32 might not be here to stay. I believe R32. Did you ever get R407C in the States?
I believe that's a drop in refrigerant use for R22. I believe I could be wrong on that.
It's
407C.
so what happened. Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's a blend. It's a three-stage blend. In the UK, we banned R22 in the late 90s, like 98, 99. They brought out R407C, introduced that to a lot of aircon systems, realised how bad it was, or, you know, it wasn't here to stay, and then they brought out 410A. I think R32 is another 407C, personally. I think it will be gone in a few years. And they'll bring something. I think it's a nice stopgap gas, you know?
I'm already right there with you. The fact that they're monitoring GWP so close, and the new law that is going to be going into effect with us starting in 2025, or at least that's when the EPA says it's going to be passed, or it's going to go into effect. And that is when 410A actually is phased out and we go to these other refrigerants. They've already said that the refrigerant used has to be below 700 GWP.
Yeah.
Well, you know, now we're right there at R32 then, you know, so it's not going to take much for them to now say, okay, now, you know, now we're going to go down to 300 or 0, you know, it's coming. Yeah. And I think you're right. We're just going to be a few years behind you guys.
Okay, I just want to throw a scenario at you. If I was in the States, and I'll give you the exact, in my opinion, the answer in the UK. You know, say you're on the verge of retirement, and you want the cheapest running, cheapest installing heating system in your house. Let's call it a 2-bedroom house, reasonably sized, you know, under 1,000 square foot. You want heating and you want hot water. You want cheap bills, you know, or low or reasonable bills, but you want a low cost installation. What would you suggest? Air conditioning, electric, air source? You know, what would your preferred solution be?
Well, if we're only talking about cheap, you know, I'm a big proponent of not just cheap but reliability. You know, when something that's gonna, you know, not only be cheap today but cheap in the long run. Looking back 15 years, was this a good decision 15 years ago? Sort of decision. That said, here in the States, probably the big three when it comes to inverter systems are going to probably be Daikin, Mitsubishi, and Fujitsu. And I would probably, if I were building a home that small, I'm going to be installing one of their products in my house. And, you know, I'm probably going to be looking at what, you know, it just depends on the house, depends on the floor plan, but you know, a lot of these inverter systems here, you're going to get a good warranty. You're going to get a great system, you know, efficient, and heat pumps have come a long way. 2 decades ago they were pretty useless below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, but these days, some of these guys are working well below freezing temperatures and saving folks money. So, how about you?
And then, but before I answer the cost difference in the States between them three products. What is the difference in cost? In the UK, Fujitsu is a lot low cost than the other two, Daikin and Mitsi. But how is the pricing in the States?
I don't want to say anything that's inaccurate, but I would say that across the board, Mitsubishi's probably going to be a little more expensive, but you get what you pay for. If you ever need a part, Mitsubishi's going to Mitsubishi and Daikin are pretty good about having parts availability in comparison I always tell folks here, I don't know how it is there, but here it's the big three and then there's everyone else. So it's Daikin, Mitsubishi, Fujitsu, and then that's everyone else. I don't, I have these guys that are just in love, and I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these Chinese brands, and they want to pretend that they're just as good, and they're just not. They're just now. If you're talking about do they blow cold air on a hot day? Well, yeah. If that's our what the brand, the metric that we're going to use, well then fine. But if we're talking about performance, reliability, parts availability, support, fill in blank across the board, it's the big three, and then it's everyone else. Don't tell me that they're just as good, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if they were.
For sure.
You got me started.
No, 100%. So one thing which we've had recently with this cold weather is this defrost, where defrost has been a massive issue. When we're talking about Daikin and Mitsi, I can't speak too much on Fujitsu because we don't do enough of them, but it's quite easy to explain how defrost works. Because of the two products, the outdoor unit becomes a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. The outdoor unit decides to defrost for it to then heat again and work efficiently. That's why it defrosts. When you're talking about Chinese products, sometimes they defrost on time, so they'll run for an hour and defrost. But at the end of the hour, it could be completely frozen and there's no efficiency. And also it'll defrost, when it likes. And it's very difficult to explain to the client why it's defrosting the way it is with a Chinese product. But the Chinese products in the UK, some of them, one of the brands, I'm not going to mention it, but it is getting better. Well, Midea is getting better as a product, but they're actually no longer any more low cost than the Japanese. I don't know if you've got this in the States. So a basic budget split system, Midea or Mitsubishi Electric, Mitsubishi Electric have actually brought out a lower cost product to rival them, and the cost is almost identical. I don't know if you're the same with pricing out there.
Yeah, I think that it's probably the same, but in a lot of cases, see, that's the thing. We're seeing a lot of brands, and I don't want to say anything inaccurate, but we're seeing a lot of brands that are partnering with one another, and you're seeing that, you'll see Japanese brands come out with products that are very inexpensive, and they're just relabeled Chinese products, right? But
okay.
That's the truth of the matter.
You're right.
Hide it. They'll say, this
this
brand is partnering with this brand, and you're like, well, partnering on what? What are you guys doing?
For sure. So that stopped. So Daikin had a product a few years ago in the UK like that. It was a Siesta range, and it was a completely different product, and it was, in my opinion, it was junk. It was cheap, and it was nasty, and it was junk. And it would last for 5 years, and you'd put it in the bin, and someone would say, I've got a Daikin unit. I've got a Daikin unit and it's not working, and it isn't a Daikin unit, it's just got a Daikin badge. But they've stopped that here in the UK now. And we've not really had many rebadged products, because a lot of the Chinese DIY units in the UK now are Chinese products, and they use the Chinese components. So that's stopped here in the UK, thankfully. But I understand your frustration, because when you quote against people which are quoting a product which they think is the same as yours, and it's not, it becomes incredibly frustrating.
Right.
Because it's not
now,
like for like.
We actually this may change someday because, you've got to figure out how to put food on the table. But for us, we have a level of quality that a brand or a product has to meet for us to even consider installing it. Do you guys do that, or do you pretty much install whatever, you need to?
We have certain, most inverters, every air conditioning system is now an inverter. So it's very difficult for us to install something which is substandard. And they're all about almost the same. So the market's kind of narrowed itself down on performance. So there are no longer really, poor efficient units versus everyone else being super efficient. So there's no high or low. They're all about the same now, efficiency-wise. So touching on Ben, so, obviously we had our Christmas do it this weekend.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, Mark, came and he shared a story with me, which is quite concerning. And I want to share this now so people can see what's going on. But before I comment on this, I visited a court recently up in Ipswich to do a call out. And normally house repossessions are 1 a week, and house repossessions are actually currently 10 a day. So
yeah, I think you said something about that. Yeah.
So, cut long story short, in that side of the world, in the Midlands, in the UK, people are losing their houses because they're struggling.
Yeah.
That's one. Let's put that to one side. The other sort of side of the coin is Mark at my Christmas do said he was at his local shop on Saturday, and an elderly lady was expecting her pension on the Friday.
Okay.
And for some reason, something had happened and her money hadn't arrived. So basically, what's happened is she said she was talking to herself, saying, "Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. My electricity bill comes out on Monday," and it was something like £90. I don't know if her pension, what her payments are, etc., etc. Moral of the story is Mark give the lady some money, and she's now paid her electricity bill. I'm assuming the lady is on electric and she's not on gas.
Yeah,
and
assumed,
that's just up the road. So people are struggling out there at the moment, and I don't know. A lot of people on electric, I think they're the ones that are going to be facing the brunt.
Yeah.
So, we know everything is going electric, but I personally feel that staying gas is the safest way over the next 5 years of having money in your bank.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to this this other podcast, or I think it was a radio station, and there was a caller that called in saying about how hard he's struggling.
Okay.
There's an old guy with his dog, and he said that he was struggling so much to pay his bills that he's afraid that he was going to pass away in his house, freeze to death with his dog.
Really?
Yeah, and the radio station actually took it upon themselves to give him money to pay all the back, because they were going to turn his electricity off.
Damn. So they've basically turned a bad thing and made it really good.
And they got in touch with the council to get the help that he needed, because they were kept like palming him off.
For sure.
So it's crazy.
But yes, super negative about this, but I'm just being a realist. If you're trying to reduce your carbon footprint and go full electric, just remember you're not always going to earn the money you're earning today to install something to replace it. And, look over 10 years. If you've got a gas boiler and it's working, just leave it, man, because you could put yourself in fuel poverty in 10 years' time, where you're looking at £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 to replace your heat pump with a heat pump. It's not a crime to stay on gas. China are burning 30 million tons of coal a day for electricity. You having a gas boiler isn't going to upset anyone. It's, God will not punish you for this. If anything, you might be able to sleep better at night knowing that your electricity bills aren't going up. So just be smart. Don't get involved with the hype and say people are going air source. There are YouTube channels, people talking about aircon units aren't, air source heat pumps aren't efficient below -5, because here's the proof. Air source heat pumps are so efficient. The issue that I have isn't the efficiency. The efficiency is the cost to install these bloody things. You're paying £7,000 to £8,000. A gas boiler replacement or an electric boiler replacement is like £1,500. Come on, just be wise. Be outspoken. Be happy to say what you feel rather than just following this trend of, but I think we've got an issue. For us, it's great. It's great for business, but it's not always about the business. It's about, surviving and suggesting what's, Well, Ben, so have you got gas boiler at home, Ben?
No, we got electric.
Electric boiler?
Yeah.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
You have an electric boiler.
Yeah.
And obviously electric has gone up. Have you noticed substantial electricity costs? Has it gone up significantly?
I wouldn't say significantly we would start worrying, but it's gone up, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and if I was to say that we could put something in which would halve your monthly costs,
yeah.
you know, would you, and you'd obviously go
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
But if I was
if
to
you
say,
turn around and said it's going to cost you $5-6 now,
you're going to tell me
no, not a chance.
And that's what I'm trying to get across to people. And we're going to keep shouting this until we get told to shut up. But Josh, I don't know if you caught what I was doing. I'm not going to use the word rant because I wasn't ranting or ranting. It's just I'm so for efficiency, and I think efficiency is so important. But I think we're slowly becoming a nation of stupidity, super stupidity. And that's where people have something in their house, whether it's a gas boiler or an electric boiler, and they're getting involved with this eco-efficiency. And somebody will say having an air source heat pump, or even an air conditioning unit for that matter. But the benefit with aircon is it does cooling and it does heating. And that's completely different because it's a luxury. But people are willing to cut their energy bills in half by having this installed, but paying £8,000 at the same time. It makes no sense to me at all. For heating. I don't know if that's you have that where you are, but it's getting massive here, and quite frankly, it's concerning because if you were to Google how long an air source heat pump lasts, you've got media saying, you know, an air source heat pump lasts 20 years. You know, how long does an air conditioning unit last in the States? 20 years?
Have they been out for 20 years?
They haven't even been out for 20 years.
So there's no way they could possibly test that.
And you speak to people and they say, this system is maintenance free, or I've got a really good warranty on it and it will last me for, 15, 20 years. But you know, Josh, that the maintenance costs of an air conditioning system is more than a boiler, and the cost replacement for parts, and then the cost to replace the unit. But this is only to heat and hot water. So it's like, I don't know, we're being misled massively in the UK. Massively with this. And I'm probably going to get told to be quiet eventually by someone about it. But at the moment, we're going to keep shouting.
Yeah, sometimes you have to ask when certain people say things, who's paying them to say that, or what's their motivation behind saying the things they're saying. We have a lot of that in the States as well. And in fact, there are government incentives and money that they will give homeowners to make decisions sometimes. And sometimes I feel like they need to take a step back and understand what they're being told. I'll give you a good example. I have no desire to be political when it comes to my YouTube stuff because, people are just, way too close-minded these days. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that we have one side in our country that used to push for things like natural gas and these clean burning fuels, and that same side, if you will, in our country has now flip-flopped and is now saying that, they want full electric everything and to not burn fuels at all. And I don't really care. I mean, if they can have whatever opinion they want to have, but if you're listening to this, it makes you wonder, okay, who was paying who for all those years that you were pushing natural gas, and who's paying who now?
Yes,
and of course they use these ideal reasons, these pedestal, I want things to be this way, so that's why I feel the way I feel, and they play on people's hearts with that stuff, when in reality it's all money. It's somebody's paying somebody to push an agenda.
The concerning thing is, Josh, the concern with this, and again, it's not politics, it's because we're dealing with people's lives and their houses. In 10 years' time, where we have properties with all electric and the cost to replace is so high, I fear people are gonna they're gonna basically be paying mortgages and paying for energy and replacing. They're not going to be able to say my gas boiler works or my diesel boiler works. They're going to say, well, I need to put this money aside this year because I need to replace my HVAC system. Which is such a complicated system. The engineering and the engineers, or the techs, as you have in the States, technicians, they're on a lot more money because it's more sophisticated. And then it really is going and then it could even inflate even more, that your house may not even be able to have a mortgage on it if it doesn't have this electrical equipment inside the house. It's interesting. It really is interesting, but we'll find out surely over the next few years. So, Josh, want to touch on basically what you think for next year? Really, that's why I think we want to get this on. We're near the end of 2022. I think if you went to the beginning of the year and to the end of the year, it's a bit like us. We've just gone, this has been crazy. This year has been, I'm tired. It's the first year at the end of the year. I'm done. Right?
Get me on holiday.
Yeah, get me on holiday. Next year, is going to be interesting. Have you got any knowledge from the States with new products? I know you've mentioned the new SEER. It's SEER 2, isn't it? Your new legislation. So I want from you predictions, but I want them immediately. What do you think's going to bring this where you are in the States and 2023?
Yeah, so 2023 will be the first year that we officially have to be using equipment that has a SEER 2 rating attached to it. And so I've made this prediction in other videos, but I don't even think it's that bold of a prediction.
Okay.
What's interesting is I made this prediction 2 years ago, and I had folks that, even other professionals in our industry, tell me how wrong I was. And that was, I said years ago that SEER is going to become a thing of the past. It's not an accurate representation of comparing an inverter system to anything else.
Okay.
When you have an inverter variable, flow system that is super efficient, you can attach a 17 SEER rating to it, and folks will think, well, this single stage system or multi-stage, two-stage system that's also 17 or even 18, a little higher, is better or just as good, and it's just simply not true. So I made that prediction years ago, and I'll just say that SEER 2 will eventually become a thing of the past too. It's not a good, accurate representation of being able to compare systems. It's like saying that, I'm going to compare gas mileage on these two cars, but yet one of the cars runs on electric most of the time.
For sure.
So how could you compare it to a gas car, even if they both get the same gas mileage, when one of them is not even using gas half the time?
Gotcha.
So I think that SEER 2 will eventually become a thing of the past. I don't think that'll be in the next year, but I'm with you. I've been in this industry for, a couple decades now, and I have never seen it like this. I've never made a YouTube video and then months later it's outdated, that it's no longer accurate because now we have new legislation, being passed.
Yeah, for sure.
2023 is going to be a year that things are going to drastically change. Here in the States, we're going to see products that have never been introduced. We're going to have brands that folks have never even heard. They're going to become household names, and of course the technology and such. So with the SEER 2 ratings, and then we've already touched on refrigerant, over the next 12 to 18 months, again, a video I make today won't even be accurate anymore because of all the new things that could come out.
Gotcha. Okay, well, you've got, I think, a lot of the UK and European sort of element to the industry, which is going to start being implemented to yourself over in the States. And I think it is all quite positive in terms of the changes, but the industry will change massively for you because you are all going to have to be retrained, because things are drastically different. For us in the UK next year, my prediction is, in terms of the products, I've been a bit pessimistic for a while now. I believe the air conditioning and refrigeration industry is hitting a plateau. I think it's stopped. I think we're almost there with efficiency. I think we can't really get that much more efficient without spending, having a chiller which is significantly more efficient but costs double the price. I think we've hit that with air. I think there needs to be a breakthrough in heating and cooling, and it might be next year. And it might be an electrical cell. It might be a hybrid. I don't know. It could be something hybrid. That's the pessimistic side. But in terms of the positive side, I know you've got this in the States with control. I believe next year is going to be all about control. It's all going to be advanced control, how to get maximum efficiency, reviewing efficiency of air conditioning. Why is air conditioning products in offices, homes, schools, etc., why is it really, why is it really expensive at this time of the day? And we're going to try and combat that by reducing energy costs. An example of this is certain supermarkets that we deal with, which I won't mention on the camera, is they have every controller has to be restricted to 19 degrees centigrade to 23 degrees centigrade. So they can no longer get above. And that goes in line with, I think that, I don't know if you remember, Ben, we might have spoken with Josh about this, but I think parts of Spain during the heat wave were fining people for using air conditioning. Have you come across this, Josh? Over 27 degrees centigrade, they weren't allowed to switch the AC on. It had to be set to 27 degrees. Did you come across this, Josh?
Yeah, do you still see me?
I see you.
Still coming in?
Yeah, I see you. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think your browser's still stopped recording.
Gotcha. Sorry, I got another message, but I did a video on this. It's not just Spain. There are multiple parts of the world where countries are controlling this, where they're saying you're gonna, in the wintertime, you're gonna keep your temperature below this temperature, and in the summertime, you're gonna keep it above this temperature. The interesting thing becomes when we're talking about the residential side of things is how will they control that? And some folks think they can't, but they can, especially if they are making everyone switch to electrical. They can not just, if nothing else, they can at least monitor it and know what you're doing and know what temperature you're keeping it at. And with that, be able to pass legislation or things like that. So, it's a big topic because, when countries like ours can see how other countries are handling it, it opens your eyes. It shows you that those sorts of things can happen.
It's something which you would probably be called a conspiracy theorist. I think the hard left will call you that, and I'm on your side with this. I think we've all got a right to be online. Whereas if you have an air conditioning system which has a Wi-Fi module in, yes, it can be monitored. If the cost of energy continues to rise, I think the push for the Wi-Fi in the aircon will become more important, because I think it will be sold to us as it is the bet. Because some of the apps that we have for our air conditioning systems are fantastic, and really you need to get the best out of your air conditioning system. You need to have it on your mobile phone. On a commercial basis, I think control is going to continue to increase, because we're going to need to control the AC remotely to be able to see how we can use them more efficiently. Last year, Josh, and we've had it this year a bit as well, where with COVID and air purification, we've had quite a few air conditioning systems with purification. So last year and this year, air purification has been quite big, including it into air conditioning systems. I believe that's going to die off next year. I don't know if that's been big for you this year in the States.
Yeah, I mean we've had indoor air quality stuff being pushed, especially in the heating and air industry, at the residential level for years now. So COVID just helped with that or pushed that more.
Okay.
Where you saw, hospitals and schools and places like that pushing for more types of products to clean the air. But I don't think that, that's going to change on as far as when you're talking about a residential heating and air service tech going into someone's home and offering solutions. I think at least here, those solutions will continue to grow. I think that, it's not going to go away.
Gotcha. Well, I think that'll be added to the feathers in the hat of options. If you were to have a wall-mounted split system with an optional air purifier, I think it's an option for a customer to have. In the UK, it's died down massively. So a lot of the systems that have the air purification, quite often they don't even have it switched on because they don't really need it, but they're just built in anyway.
So was that the main selling point then? Because obviously I weren't here during COVID. Was air purification like a big part of it? Because I always thought, my friends and things, they started working from home, so they didn't have access to the cool coffee shops and stuff when they're out, and it hit that massive summer over lockdown where you had to stay in indoors.
It was a great sell. It was an easy sell. COVID, viruses. Our air conditioning unit kills viruses. That was one. And also, you know what? When it's make hay while the sun is shining, right? I don't know if you know that. Is that a saying in the States?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's never waste a crisis. So, people said, "Here's a purifier. It'll cost double the price. Do you want it?" And people were shouting for it. But an air purifier will never make you healthy. Just remember that. Just remember that. But that's kind of, that's not as big as it was. Maybe it'll become, slightly big. You got the likes of Panasonic big in the States, Josh?
I wouldn't say big. We can get them, but they have very small market share compared to others.
Okay, so Panasonic in the UK is quite a small market share. It's a rising brand though. They've got a system called Nano X, and it's a generator built into each air conditioning system, which is a purifier. It's record-breaking technology, and it's very good. It does reduce, pollutants, and it removes smells. But they've also put this into cars. So any Land Rover Jaguar that you buy as of 2023 has this Panasonic product in it. So, it's something which may be big in the States. I don't know. It's okay here in the UK. The problem that we found with it is it makes the product more expensive. So it's a medium brand product which is now the cost of a higher end product. So unless you want the Nano X system, you'll end up pricing Panasonic at the market because you compared them against the Daikin, and people want the Daikin because of the brand, and it's the same price. So that's I don't know. I think you mentioned something earlier about different brands and Chinese products and loads. I think next year for us as well is going to be similar to that, Josh, where I think where there is so much option for air conditioning products now, I think people are going to be spoilt for choice, and people are going to do whatever they can to get the sale. So it's, there are different strategies for the brands next year. Some of them are going through distributors. Some of them are selling direct. But as the Japanese say, all they're doing is selling boxes. So they're going to do whatever they can to sell them boxes. And if the recession does hit like it's supposed to hit, which I believe it will hit, people are going to sell boxes any way they possibly can. So I think it might be worth us setting up eBay stores and selling these products because I think it will resort to that. We've not lived through a recession where people can't afford anything, but second-hand air conditioning products we would never dream of installing. I think we might get there eventually. Will it be next year? I don't know. But we're busy. I don't know about you, Josh, but we're booked up. We're booked next year. Our first couple of months, we're very busy. People are still spending. Is that a trend that you have in the States?
Yeah, I mean, we're I don't know. I can't say that we're booked for months. We do mostly service, but I think that, as far as I loved what you just said, because I think if someone were to catch this video, and I just want to, throw this out there, if somebody catches our video, and I know we've talked about a lot of doom and gloom and a lot of, horrible situations or whatever, however folks want to look at it, I think what this ultimately boils down to is for someone that, whether they live in the UK or in the US, if they're in the market for a heating and air system and they catch this video, there are going to be options in the future that we currently don't have. And so we're talking about a lot of doom and gloom stuff, but it's not all doom and gloom. There's going to be, ways, there's going to be things, again, there's going to be technologies that you've never heard of, and even brands. And because of that, you've already mentioned some of the brands that are already household names coming up with other solutions, offering less expensive options and things like that. So it's not just, there's a lot of craziness. There's a lot of, what you could probably say is doom and gloom, but there's going to be a lot of options out there that, folks are going to be able to consider when they never would have considered it before because of, newer technologies or newer options and things like that.
The biggest, doom and gloom is actually when we discuss doom and gloom, the biggest positive that comes out of this is we're ready and we're knowing where things may go. And it's better to be proactive than reactive. It's better to service your HVAC system than wait for it to break. And I think it's an engine. I think if you're an engineer, I think you mentally or you strategically just do it. It's just being a bit real. But doom and gloom is so important because you kind of you just see things a little bit differently rather than, yes, we're really busy. It's really busy, aircon, people are still having it and not really understanding what's happening because, if a new product comes out next year and we're expecting it, we kind of know where it leads next. Or if you have an air conditioning system with an air purifier, you now know, or you now need to show your tech guys how to switch it on, or you need to explain to the client how it works. Because I don't know about you, Josh, but a lot of our customers now are doing a lot of YouTubing and Googling, and they actually know as much as I do on certain products. And it's not frustrating. It's actually brilliant because it's a breath of fresh air for people to want, to get this. And again, it goes back to the whirlwind year, and it's going to go into next year where we need to be on top of our game. We need to know more than anyone, and we need to understand what's happening and why. Otherwise, we get left behind, and we're going to be caught, as Warren Buffett says, swimming naked. Somebody will suggest a product, you'll go, I've never heard of it. And then automatically you're disqualified from the quoting procedure or, whatever way you quote for the work. And you'll be learning reactively rather than proactively.
Yeah, if you're not following along, if you are in the market for a heating and air system, you should be following Jacob. You should be following us. There's going to be products that hit the market that we're both going to be sharing over the next year or two that it's going to change the industry. This is not me just being crazy and predicting things that I've already heard about it. I'm not allowed to share a few of the things, but I've had closed door conversations on things that I'm like, can I share that? And they're like, no, you can't. Daikin's coming out with a new thermostat that launches. Well, it's already launched. You can buy it, but you won't be able to hold it in your hands until next month. And I knew about that thermostat over a year ago.
What's it called?
It's the Daikin One Touch. So it's like the Daikin One, but it doesn't have the little spinny dial anymore. It's all touch screen.
Okay.
And so I heard about that thermostat a year ago, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it yet.
Okay.
But there's stuff coming that folks that I'm telling you, it's not all doom and gloom. There's some stuff coming that they're gonna be able to have other options and consider things that are more efficient for their home and maybe not spend quite so much money because they just keep seeing prices go up.
For sure.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
I'm gonna give you and people watching. I think this is my take on a lot of things. It's not the economy in general, but in regards to HVAC and air conditioning, Mitsubishi Electric in the UK, Daikin in the UK, they've had a record year. I don't know if it's the same in the States, but they've sold. They've done really well. Yep. I know you've done podcasts on this, Josh, about, and I'm just going to touch on this, and we can probably put a link below once we finish recording, but. You've done a podcast on where are all the HVAC techs going, which was really interesting. Watch that one. Okay, and this leads on to, I've spoken to Daikin about this last week, and our rep, I think he listened, and I think he understood this, but I can see this happening next year, Josh. And it's doom and gloom, but it's a scenario, and it can really help shape your business, or it can help shape Daikin or Mitzi if they want to look at it this way. You might be able to produce the products, but if you haven't got the team to deliver the products to the people, and that's if you're a distributor or the manufacturer itself, you've then got too much product to sell to your HVAC companies, and they don't have the people to do the work, but they can't charge that much more because of the cost will hit a ceiling. They can't get the HVAC techs. And also, they're not willing to train up the HVAC techs, which take about 2 to 3 years, by the way, to train, to do some work. You then have a problem where the industry stops, or your industry could stop. It's not just HVAC. And then you have materials which you can't get hold of, or parts you can't get hold of because nobody wants to make aircon components anymore, or nobody wants to be involved with aircon anymore because it's no fun. You know, there's not enough time on the computer making it. And then what happens is you've got HVAC techs, which the baby boomer generation were massive engineers, you know, but they're all retired now, and they're not being replaced. And I believe it takes a good 5 to 10 years to have a real, you know, engineers like myself, not that I'm saying I'm some great, amazing engineer, but when I learned, the engineers that trained me and sort of the engineers that my generation become, and which we've got with us in our business, they just don't make them anymore. And it takes 10, 15 years. And I think there's been too much product and too much noisiness. And I think next year we may find that it slows things down significantly. And it might be a case of you can't buy a product from a distributor because they haven't got the staff, or they just can't deliver. You know, if Daikin or you know, let's just say a manufacturer has had another record year next year and they're planning for a record year, they can't physically deliver the orders. And the companies can't just install the kit in the time. I think there's going to be a time lapse. I don't know what your take on this, Josh, if you have a similarity in the States where you may not be able to actually, things slow down because there just aren't people there to deliver them.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, especially with the baby boomer generation. And I think that there is gonna it could go one of two ways. It could continue to be magnified as we go on, or you're gonna see companies do a pivot and they're going to offer, you know, more DIY products. You're going to see more, you're going to see less complications, right? They're going to have to come up with ways where today, if I have a system down, I've got to diagnose one of, 30 different parts that could be causing this issue, where instead, because no one can work on them, then maybe these companies will come up with ways where you just swap out the entire unit because the problem has at least been isolated to the outdoor unit or whatever the case is. I think you're 100% right. You know, they can only sell what folks are going to buy, and folks aren't going to keep buying stuff if no one can work on it. And so that, they're going to have to figure that problem out themselves, the people, the manufacturers that are selling these products. So whether that vacuum gets filled, as you said, it takes time. Maybe that it could, swing back around as they see guys like me and you that are the next generation start to be worth a whole lot more money, so we're making a whole lot more money. So you see the next generation that says, oh, well, a whole bunch more of us want to get in this industry because look at all the money that can be made.
So that's
then it goes back the other way.
Correct. So that's a massive plus side. And I really hope that happens because, plumbers, HVAC, electricians, trades have always been seen as mediocre versus, as I like to say, as I've been told quite recently, bad project managers are usually bad engineers, or some of them. Bad engineers make bad project managers, and the project managers get a little bit more money than the engineers. And it's always been quite wrong, actually, because they use less brain cells. But that's the plus side on this. The vacuum could be filled, and that could be the financial side of things. I don't know. It really is interesting. It's going to be an interesting year with this kind of stuff. It really is. But let's see what happens, right?
That's right. I think you're going to see a lot of businesses started as well. So as long as the economy holds on a little bit longer, I think you're going to see more and more techs go out on their own. You're going to see, at least here in the U.S., you're going to see, a lot of more self-employed people because of the, of the solutions that a lot of these companies are coming up with. They're selling directly to the consumer. We talked about this in our last show where a lot of manufacturers, especially the traditional brands, for years marketed to us, the contractor, and then it was up to each local contractor to educate and market to their local, territory of homeowners, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing less of that. I think you're seeing brands, more and more of them are looking for ways to connect to the homeowners directly. I've been in some meetings with that stuff as well, where they're looking at, YouTube influencers, if you will, people like that. They're looking at more ways of advertising, such as, if you go on your streaming TV service and you're watching something on television,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see more and more, and it's not just heating and air, but just brands that were more of a wholesale type brand.
For sure.
They're going to have to pivot, or they're going to be like Blockbuster when Netflix came along. They're going to have to figure out a way to keep up with it. And I know why. It's because they're seeing other brands do that, and they're we have brands here that I don't think y'all have there. They're trying to be that DIY product that someone goes into a hardware store and buys, and it's not, it is what it is, but you're going to see all these traditional brands get with it as well. They're going to pivot to that, I think.
It's the shopping list sort of way of buying things. Using Dakin and Mitzi as an example, they've sort of slowly pushed us now, so we no longer place emails to place orders. We now use their online shop, and also, don't know if do you have Costco in the States?
Yes.
So Costco actually sell Dakin products. So yeah, you're spot on with that. But you know what, Josh? If you haven't got the people to install it, or the costs as much without the warranty, sometimes you know what, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's what I call fit and forget. You fit it, and then you no longer speak to them again because it's not your problem. Touching on 2023, actually, we're talking about and the baby boomer generation. HVAC and air conditioning isn't big in colleges in the UK, and also there are no government incentives in place to train. I think if there was a government incentive for air conditioning and heat pump businesses to train staff, or an incentive for youngsters to get into our trade, I think that's something which would make it much more attractive. Again, thinking 2 to 5 years time, it really is. Yeah, 2023 is going to be massive. Like it's probably going to be 2023 is going to lead the way, in my opinion, for 2024 to 2030. I think whatever happens next year is what's going to, and you've mentioned the phase out of 410A in the States. Whatever happens next year, in my opinion, will lead the way for the rest of for the next 5 years.
Absolutely, I'm totally with you on that. This next year, the next 12 to 18 months, you're gonna see stuff that you've never ever seen before in our industry, because they have to find a way to get around some of these things.
That's it.
Maybe not get around it, but get with it.
That's it.
So
wonderful. Well, it's been great to see you, Josh. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
And this is us for the rest of the year now.
That's
back
it.
in the new year. A lot more things in the pipeline. So
I really hope you. I really hope everything goes well with you, and you keep doing your thing.
You too. It's nice to see you guys. I feel like there are a lot of different YouTube channels out there that are doing other things. They're either, they're fixing an air conditioner and they've got a camera along, or they have other motivations to be doing what they're doing, other goals in mind. Whereas I feel like you guys are doing almost exactly what we're trying to do, which is share information to consumers and to homeowners making a tough decision, and giving them the information that no one else is giving them, and so I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Josh, there's nothing, being wrong is amazing, and I think as engineers and as people that dealing with products every single day, we all have conversations over trade desks or with manufacturers or with homeowners, and I think it's our duty to exploit that conversation and to open it up. And I think to have feedback from, which is going to be next for us, we want the manufacturers to answer the questions and to actually throw it at us and say, well, we do this because of this. And I think it will change our thought in the UK and the States, because it's not always a sales pitch. These sales reps are also people, and they also have agendas, and they also have their concerns. And I think, for us next year, we really want to get the manufacturers involved, because it'll help boost their products, but not just help boost their products. It'll help homeowners understand the way things are done. And I think that's what we're missing, and we'll be definitely getting you involved. It could be like a manufacturer edition, UK versus the States.
We need to get them in a hot seat where they sit in between us, and we get them, right? We just drill them with questions.
Of course, but we will then be walking a fine line of you know, our prices start rise, you know, and things like that. Let's not deal with that. Let's not deal. Let's not deal with that guy.
Yeah.
No, good
Right.
to see you, Josh. You take care of yourself.
You too. Take care.
All the best. Thank you.